Hey Bill, what's going on? It's Gene, and I'm with Elkanah.
Hello, this is Elkanah Reed.
And basically, Elkanah helped really develop this amazing platform that I've been kind of involved for the past like 4 years. But really, he's kind of like taken on like the really, I'd say, heavy lifting, while I kind of like been helping like kind of like steer guide the direction for it. But obviously, I had a lot of time in the last few months, and I probably moved on and took this on like as a real serious thing because I'm starting to now really see the value. And a lot of this ideas were really developed during my time and experience from MSG and working with the creating branded content for them. And I realized that there was a lot of issues that we were having with the sales team and kind of the advertisers overall, that the process was really janky. And what Elcano has really essentially developed was the means to essentially solve a lot of solutions where people are looking to create branded content for advertisers. And the platform is called 11 Digital. And I guess like Elcano, you can kind of like kick it off essentially like in a nutshell, like what 11 Digital
So, in a
is.
nutshell, 11 connects publishers and advertisers programmatically for more branded content opportunities.
And so, what that means, Bill, it's basically a marketplace where advertisers can find exactly the audience that they're seeking when they're sourcing publishers for branded content. And I'm gonna like bring this back to the example of when we're at MSG, and you had, let's say, Andrew Carson, and you had Evan Frankel, all these guys on the sales team, and they're all coming up to us and saying, "Hey, man, like we'd love to kind of like create a branded series with the Rockettes. We got Pandora jewelry. What can we do?" And then you'd have to come up with kind of this whole creative concept that would have to be pitched to Pandora. But then what would end up happening would be, let's say, I'll give you a really better example. Let's say we had to do something with Lexus cars, and they wanted to reach that high-end audience, and they want to do something branded content with MSG, right? And the sales team would essentially pitch the concept of working with MSG to Lexus to basically just get their money, right? But the problem was that Lexus would be looking for a higher end, highbrow audience, which is not what MSG has. MSG was a very blue collar, very middle class audience on its digital channels, right? So unfortunately, what would end up happening was you would have the sales team pitching the idea or creative concept first and the audience data second. And that just led to like a number of problems where in essence, we would actually have the sales team, yes, getting the money, but then us in the content team, we were kind of screwed because we would be making content that didn't necessarily fit our digital audience. And then in return, the audience themselves would be less receptive to the branded content we would make because it wasn't really made for them in mind. It was just like, hey, listen, this is branded content and it's sponsored by Lexus, blah blah, and then like this doesn't match this demo whatsoever, right? So you would get kind of like take an audience hit, and we would have to put media dollars just to get those views and impressions, just to make Lexus happy. And then you would end up having an unhappy advertiser, and then you would end up having a really unreceptive audience, and then the audience would not be receptive to future content. And then from a sales team perspective, they wouldn't necessarily be able to go after Lexus again because we've already shown that, hey, listen, our content isn't working for you. So what this platform essentially is kind of thinking about it how people can do a media buy on Facebook or Google, where it allows advertisers to basically say, listen, I'm looking for a specific audience. Which publishers who are creating branded content series or just creating content series overall, who has that audience, right? So this platform pulls in that data, puts it into basically the advertiser's hands to say, okay, listen, you're looking for a certain audience that has completed certain actions. These are the content producers and the series, specifically the series that they're making, that reach that audience. And in other words, then the advertisers can basically just say, okay, I want to connect with these guys, these guys, these guys, based upon the rates that they have, right? So essentially, you as an advertiser, you can now go into doing a batch pitch process or a batch buy on branded content, as opposed to having to put all your eggs in one basket, right? And so that's a benefit for the advertisers, and then for the sales team on the content publisher side, it's a benefit for them because instead of having to like pitch the moon for every brand out there to get media dollars or sponsorship dollars, they are in essence getting the RFPs straight to them. And then all they need to realize is that, hey, listen, we already know that this advertiser is coming to us because they're looking at our audience for a very specific reason, and we just have to figure out, do we want to enact on it? And so as a content maker, for people like you and me, Bill, we don't have to like really worry so much and realize, oh, I guess this is like a really far stretch for us to make content like this for our audience because it's not going to make sense. Now we know, okay, this is going to make sense because this is what our audience likes. So with that in mind, Elkonos is kind of run through the platform. So imagine that you're a publisher, in this case, let's say you're like Pandora, and all your digital content channels, like, how else can you extract additional revenue from your social and, your content overall? And again, this is for you guys specifically, we're not talking about like the music platform. We're talking about like your actual content that you're creating.
So in this view, I'm operating as if I was the head of sales of Viacom. So I can quickly connect my channels to analyze my audiences via 11 Digital's technology. So I connect BET, MTV, Comedy Central, Logo, and Nickelodeon. 11 Digital gives me all of my aggregate notifications across all of the branded content opportunities that I have in process, so I can keep track of them. As well as, our goal is to increase the fill rate to 100%. So right now, I've got total revenue of $8 million, and I've got $25,000 worth of unsold inventory.
And that's basically, if you're wondering, Bill, how these numbers are created, again, think about the issues at MSG where all the sales teams were trying to figure out, hey, how much is our stuff worth? And like we were just coming up with like arbitrary numbers, or like, I don't know, 5 million. Like it was literally boiling down to that, Bill, where we were literally just making up numbers of what our branded content's worth. So the way how this is kind of planned out is like you essentially set your rates from the very beginning based on a view count. So this way, from a advertiser standpoint, when they do their media buys, they're going to realize, okay, I got to pay, whatever MSG this amount of money in order just to create the content, and then also based on the views, this is how much I'm going to pay for the views. So it's actually like really like a much more efficient system because now the MSG gets the green light knowing that, okay, this advertiser is going to pay me with the production costs baked into our rates, and they're going to probably pay me even additionally more if this thing even gets even more views potentially, depending on what's projected. And so if you're wondering how these numbers are essentially devised, that's how like these calculations are coming up with. And again, right now, branded content deals, they're not really dealt on like a per view basis. They're just basically based overall on, okay, $5 million, $10 million, like they're just like one generic big number. And again, what a lot of advertisers are seeing is that that's very inefficient because I may be paying someone for stuff that's not getting good traction, right? And I've seen it when we're at MSG, and I've seen it at countless other places. But again, this is now keeping in mind that the advertiser is looking towards your audience for a specific reason. And again, you now are creating content with your audience first in mind. So it's kind of like an ecosystem that's more efficient, like in the end.
So as we continue to go through the platform, you can keep track of all of your recent orders. So that's every single request that brands have asked for in terms of branded content by the day, as well as you can view all the RFPs across all your channels, as well as all the campaigns that you have in process.
So again, Bill, think about what I just said earlier. This is kind of like for the sales team. It's like the sales opportunity is coming to you. It's like you're not like seeking it. The advertisers are seeking you. And so as, a digital content team or a social team, that will make you feel pretty good because basically you can say, hey, like even if like no one buys your inventory, even if you act on nothing, right? At the end of the day, you can basically say, hey, I'm worth this. My thing is worth that. How do we know that? Because we're getting these RFPs and they're basically like hungry for us. And then kind of just to sum this one all up, oh wait, there's actually more.
Yeah, exactly, there's more.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We believe at 11 Digital that your data, number one, is yours, and we have an obligation to you to protect it. So you actually can get access to every advertiser in our system. You can do it all together, or you can be selective. You can select Procter & Gamble, Spotify, Burger King, and deny Nike, or deny Burger King, depending on where you sit in the spectrum. Then as well as you can keep a record of all the deliverables that you have across all the branded content campaigns that you're running. So like you might have some product placements On the docket, you might have some title sponsorships, some brand integrations. This is built to become your branded entertainment command center.
Yeah, so it's not just even like a campaign management, but it's also like really amazing controls that we really thought about all these things, Bill, like beforehand. Like again, like we realize, okay, when advertisers are looking for audience, not every publisher wants everyone to have their data, right? So you have to control. Do you want everyone to have your data, or do you want, like, every time a new advertiser signs up, do you want to open yourself up to their RFPs? And so that's why it's the example of, let's say Procter & Gamble joins in and they want to advertise. You can basically say, okay, fine, I want Procter & Gamble. I want to be searchable in their audience networks, whatever. And so finally, to sum it up, and this is what I originally meant to say, this was kind of the issue that I realized, Bill, that we had at MSG was that there was so many back and forth with like the sales team, like with let's say for example Dory when she was handling the Coca-Cola account, and with like down to me and you about like, hey, what are we doing with like that before the show? Hey, what's Ellen happy? Like, is Ellen got this thing going? Is this thing live? Blah blah. Coca-Cola's like angry. Yada yada yada. And what we just realized is like, listen, we just need a means of like keeping everyone like in command, like everyone that's like a stakeholder like on the same page. And this way, you can set it where essentially like, if you only want to see the communications that are going on between certain people in a campaign, you can see that. So this way you understand like, okay, what the advertisers are thinking, and what our sales team is saying, or what the content creators are saying back to the sales team, like what's doable. And that's just think of it kind of like a Slack system within the platform. But again, it's to ease the process of making sure that the content is created with everyone, with all the stakeholders having what they want. And so, Bill, I'd really love for you to kind of like, like learn more about this. The plan right now is the launch is going to happen in the first quarter of January 2019. We have a number of key supply side or publishers in this case signed up, and what that basically means is essentially that is what the advertisers are looking for right now. And so I'd love for you to be part of this in terms of like Pandora. Again, we can't really reveal too much just from like a privacy information of like who else is signed up, but I'll put it to you like this. The other players in your space are coming aboard. So that should give you an idea of like what to expect. And, again, I would love for you guys to also be in there once we like launch. And again, I know like as you're now leading the digital side, I think this would be a great way to, just add, Pandora, like another monetization channel for Pandora.
Agreed. Looking forward to continue to talk to you.